Okay. Thank you, Bill. Welcome to this session, which is titled Shifting Financial and Technological Literacies. Looks like a very interesting session, 3 great papers. The first paper is by Roxana Beretta Casserel and Judith Marisal. I hope I got the names right. The title is Banking the Poor Through Mobile Telephone in Latin America. The context is Latin America. Thank you.
Good morning. Bill is saying something, I don't understand. It's okay? You can hear me well. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Oh. Okay, here. Thank you to TFI for the invitation and the support of this investigation. I am doing this in collaboration with my colleague Roxana Barrantes, who was not able to come today. She did part of the initial research, and I'm doing a second, but let me go. We're looking at a case of Latin America. Oops. Right. So I'm going to talk about the context. This is mostly a regulatory perspective of the cases in Latin America. As we both are world, Roxana is an economist, I'm a public policy scholar. So we're going to look at both these sectors, the regulatory environments in the telecommunications sector and in the financial sector as enabling conditions for mobile banking, and there we're going to go into a case study in Mexico. So this is the part that Roxana Barrantes has been working on, and what she and her team are doing is applying the telecommunications regulatory environment methodology, which is pretty standard, but applying it to the mobile banking ecosystem. In how it works generally is through surveys, that they do interviews to experts on each of these areas of the regulatory system, and they transmit what they believe are the scale of these conditions. So there are 3 basic legs to this methodology. The institutional environment that looks at the regulation of the financial system existing in each country, looks in terms of the issues of safety and security, the promotion of financial inclusion practices, protection, and the regulatory environment for telecommunications also. In terms of the market, they look at the degree of competition in both sectors, the degree of innovation in telecommunications in markets, and in general look at the deployment of infrastructure. What is the access of mobile telephony in general? This also includes terms of affordability as a result of the efficiency of the market or not. Then the end user perspective looks at the availability of these different services and products. The assumption here is that is a demand that can be seen from the lack of financial services, the lack of financial institution, financial inclusion, I'm sorry. One thing that is, it doesn't go into details, and perhaps that is something we should work on, and I'm going to look at the following research. For example, is the need for, in the mobile banking ecosystem, the need to have different kinds of partnerships. That partnership between agents, merchants, banks, etc. The other part of the research is looking at a specific case study in Mexico. This is a success up to now success story in a very short period of time that was done in Santiago Nuyoó in Mexico, in the state of Oaxaca. And what we're looking at is what were the conditions that enabled the emergence of this mobile banking model. It's a private model that was that emerged out of government coordination in a marginalized community. And this is very early. It's been implemented since last year, so we have some early insights. So looking at these countries, Peru, Guatemala, Paraguay, El Salvador, and I'm putting in Mexico in there just so we could have a comparison, is in general that you have a pretty strong access to mobile services in general in all of these countries. Of course, there is more of access in the urban areas than in the rural areas. Paraguay here stands out as almost, and this is really not comparable. I mean, we do have mobile access, and by 2012, we've certainly exceeded these rates. What we don't have there is good data. So they're not, oops, I'm sorry. It was, this is it. But it does give us a view of what mobile access is in general. So what we can say is that even in the low-income segments of the population, people have access to mobiles. There is still an issue of affordability, especially for low-income segments of the population. What we see here is the cost of prepaid service, which is the service that most of the poor use. Well, it's looking at the third decile, and what a percentage of their income does telecommunications service, well, mobile service include. Peru is the most expensive in terms of Latin America. This is generally the case. Brazil is not included. If it were, it would beat Peru. Brazil right now is one of the most expensive mobile services in Latin America, followed closely by Peru and Mexico. And, well, the reason as to why that is a whole different study, but we do know that Peru and Mexico have very concentrated markets, not as much as Brazil. So this is sort of the context of the telecommunications sector. In terms of the financial sector, it's not surprising to see that there is very little access. Peru has the highest level of access, but this is commercial banks. When you go, and you're looking at it in terms of penetration, and then in terms of the geographic penetration. When you look at it in terms of ATM, it kind of shuffles around, and El Salvador comes out with the highest penetration. Still, however, we have very low level of financial inclusion in all of these countries. So the results, what we see here in terms of the scores on the regulatory environment, where they were asking 1 is very effective, 1 is very ineffective, and 5 is very effective. You see the kinds of financial regulation of mobile financial services. Then you see regulation only for financial inclusion, then for mobile financial inclusion, and coordination and consumer protection in general. So sort of nobody is really winning here. They're under passing grade. You see the case, well, in general, Peru shows a better score, but not that much more than the rest of the countries, perhaps. And then one of the lowest appears to be Salvador in most cases. But the next one, yes, I think we're missing the title. But the next one looks at the overall scores, and as you see, bottom line is the necessary environment for emerging banking model, mobile banking models are not met in neither of these countries. They're all pretty much underscored. In most of the cases, reaching the market environment is easier. The institutional environment is easier, but however, in none of these countries do we see the basic conditions. And that is the work in progress. They're still doing the interviews, and we're still gathering, trying to refine the different questions asked to try to have a more complete picture of the environment in general. At the same time, in Mexico, this Santiago Nuyoó community came up as an interesting example to study. This is a very, very small community, very small town in the mountains of Oaxaca, where most of the population is indigenous. What happened here is that the public agency, the telecom agency, decided that it was going to implement pilot model here in Oaxaca. Santiago Nuyoó is not connected at all. It didn't have financial services or any kind of voice services. Well, it had telephone booth, but basically there was no very low fixed phone services, and there were zero mobile services. What the results show is this was first implemented in January of this year, we're still in this year, and not surprisingly, people were given mobile phones, and from zero they went up to 100. There was a process of learning, and there has been pretty much a stabilization of 100 calls and 100 SMS monthly per person. What the savings went up to $11.5 per month, which appears to be a pretty large amount in terms of their income, and the accounts were up to 316 new accounts by June. There was also monthly payments of an average of 1.5 per person. And when you look at this in terms of transactions, the results show that, there's transactional users, but there's a lot of cash-in of savers in the community from January. Then August, tends to be, July especially, and June, that is the month of the end of the school year, that may be associated to end of the year of the graduation and for children. Overall, though, you can say that in an 8-month period, this has been pretty much a success. Again, we go back to what the success means and what kind of indicators are we trying to look at to identify it as a success. And this is very early. We need to go on. We're going to go back to the site and see what's been going on. So what happened? Why did a private business model surge in this very small community? First of all, in Mexico, and this is not only the case for Oaxaca, last year in Mexico, the regulatory financial regulations were designed to promote mobile banking for the poor in general. So what we saw is that the Comisión Nacional Bancaria, the the Banking Commission in Mexico created a set of rules that facilitated the opening of banking accounts, and created the existence of the figure of branchless banking. There was the availability of interoperability between banking platforms, and a factor, institutional factor, that was obviously key here that would not have happened was the coordination by Telegrafos, a government agency that came here and basically brought everyone together for this to happen. It integrated the suppliers of equipment. It also got some donations by Huawei, the Chinese equipment provider. The banking services, however, were based on a profit model. Banorte came in. In terms of the market environment, well, that's part of the conditions that were also studied in the TRE methodology, that you needed to have interoperability, non-discriminatory, cheap and fast transactions between banks, and a coordination of public agencies to try to pay wages and different payments to beneficiaries' accounts directly. In terms of the end-user environment, the mandatory free-of-charge account, the branchless banking, we have almost 17,000 points now in the country, the diminishing requirements to open an account, and a certain degree of competition in banking services in rural areas. At this point in 2012, we have 3 different small mobile banking services for the poor competing in the market. So what are the tentative insights, the preliminary insights here? First of all, that yes, we believe we're in the right direction in terms of trying to identify the basic conditions of adapting the TRE methodology to the mobile banking ecosystem. However, I think it needs some details. And what we found out, the results show that these 4 countries in Latin America, do not meet even the most basic conditions for mobile banking models to be opened up. We saw that what happened in Oaxaca was that while something was going on at the federal level that had nothing to do with the telecom agency, that there was a public policy designed to promote mobile banking services to the poor, what happened in Oaxaca was specifically coordinated and integrated by an agency. Thus, the business interests were aligned with the social goals. On the demand side, their barriers to entry had diminished. And what was very interesting also to see is that this came along. Telegrafos Telecom provided the connectivity that was not there through satellite connections, but it also promoted a very specific financial education course for the people that were giving the mobiles and the ones that opened up an account. So it was exactly, a textbook of what would you have to do. They went to this small town and they did exactly what they were supposed to do. So it's not surprising that we get some positive results. However, in terms of so what, the question is, we still don't see, even though the basic conditions are there in most of Mexico City, we don't see any real significant model of mobile banking services to the bottom of the pyramid. There has been not a fast adoption. So regulatory factors are certainly necessary conditions, but perhaps are not sufficient conditions. Is there a role of the state as a driver? Would the government be able to go around putting these pilots all over the country? Certainly, we do know that operators have yet to successfully replicate other models, as in Kenya, the M-Pesa, which at some level we believe maybe is a fluke, but that's open to question. So even when the basic environment exists, as in Mexico, we do not see a model going on, operators going on, carriers going on their own to really replicate these kind of models rapidly and in a large scale. Okay, thank you.
We'll wait for the next two presentations and then open the session for questions. Next presenter, the title is Farmers' Access to ICT-Based Software in Household Savings Generation in Philippines. The speaker is Ellarine Isles. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. In the last 4 years, I was witness to Micro Philippines market research and trainings on mobile banking and agriculture finance through the support of Micro Philippines major donor Mercy Corps. Back then, I was like this child, excited to see what's on the other side of what seemed to be the field of dreams. Mobile banking is like the red flower in the photo that is so attractive, eye-catching, that you would want to hold close to you. In December 7 to 9, 2011, just a year ago, I attended the ICT workshop for agriculture at the International Rice Research Institute. Apart from the friendships developed during the workshop, I took home with me this vision of optimizing the productivity of farmers through ICT. Instantly, I knew then I have a proposal to draft when I reach home. IMTFI has been in my radar since I facilitated submission of Micro Philippines proposal in 2010, when Micro first got the research grant. Great things snowballed since IMTFI confirmed another research grant, which is the impact of farmers' access to ICT services on household savings and credit payment, which I'm presenting now. In September 2011, I also took a course on optimizing farmers' productivity in the Netherlands, where another group is awaiting for the result of this research, and this is just the beginning. This impact research of farmers' access to ICT services on household savings and credit payments aims to understand how mobile ICT applications changes farmer access. 2, understand key elements of farmer adoptions, and 3, understand MFI's capability of pursuing new farmer segments, capture greater farmer data, and promote cross-selling through ICT-based agriculture technology support and ultimately mobile money. 2 of existing microfinance institution clients of Micro Philippines that implements micro-agri-loan program were included in the research, with a delay in the implementation of micro-agri-loan program by the Department of Agrarian Reform. These 2 MFIs are from the Visayas and Mindanao in Philippines. Cebu City is in the Visayas, while Sarangani is in Mindanao. Cebu City is the second most significant metropolitan center in the Philippines and the main domestic shipping port, with 80% of the gross of the country's domestic shipping companies. Sarangani, on the other hand, belongs to the top 10 poorest provinces with tuna as a main product. From these 2 MFIs, profiling of its clients in Sarangani and Cebu were made, specifically with first consolidated along Tanon Seaboard in Cebu City and Malapatan Multipurpose Cooperative in Sarangani were conducted. Profiling of agricultural ICT-based services in the Philippines came as a surprise, as there are not just 1 nor 2 of these kinds. This study looks into 4 agriculture ICT-based services, including the Nutrient Manager, Crop Manager, e-extension e-learning by the Agriculture Training Institute, and the Agriculture and Fisheries Market Information System. NM Rice was launched in January 2011 by IRI through its Agriculture Application Laboratory in Los Baños, Laguna, Philippines. NM Rice is a web and mobile phone application that provides guidelines to farmers on fertilizer application to specific field or rice growing area using internet accessible through computer or smartphones. IVRS are available through Globe, toll-free number 2378, while Crop Manager is a tool that tests and validates the Crop Manager is a tool that tests and validates management options to help farmers copy with problems relating to flooding, drought, or even salinity. The Crop Doctor is a field diagnostic for identifying factors limited to rice crop growth brought by insects, pests, rodents, nematodes, diseases, and weeds. And this will all be available by early 2014. Another agriculture IT service is the e-extension e-learning by the Agrarian Training Institute that provides online agriculture trainings. This e-learning has resources on agriculture, marine and fisheries, livestock and poultry, crops, sustainable agriculture, e-extension offices, and other digital resources. Their latest addition to the online modules is writing winning proposals. One highly interesting agriculture ICT service is the Agriculture and Fisheries Market Information System that captures supply, demand, and pricing for agriculture-related products. In line with the research methodology, a total of 223 farmer respondents were randomly selected by MFIs, with 111 for MMPC and 112 for FCCT. The work plan for this study was adjusted to July as pre-field activities were completed. This includes tools development and confirmation of participating microfinance institutions. The next phase of the project was completed in August and November. This involved field data gathering, encoding, analysis, and further processing. Preliminary report was also prepared in November, with this presentation forming part of the mid-research report. Moving forward, further data gathering and processing are expected in January towards submission of final report in March 2013. Some of the initial findings include farmer savings and credit payment, or along the lines of farmer savings and credit payment, relation between the access of ICT services and farmer savings and credit payment level, comparative analysis for Sarangani and Cebu, and the perception of farmer households on ICT services. Okay. Farmer household spending pattern or priorities were looked upon to see the top 3 priorities of the respondents. Small business and medical expenses ranked first, while savings came in second, while payment for tuition fee as the third. Though only 49% of the respondents consider the importance of saving for business and medicine, we see the potential for developing several products that would cater to the needs of these MFI clients. The least 3 priorities are socials, gadgets, and furniture. What used to be a priority for rural areas, that's social function, are no longer given as much priority now. Gadgets are also seen as not a priority expense together with the house furniture. From the profiling of clients, we see that the farmer saving method are mostly at home, 15%, and on business, 12%. We also had to check if farmers are really able to save, with only 24% expressing that they have no savings. Next, we look into the farmer's loan history. Here's a graph on formal and informal loan availment of the respondents. With FCCT, there is nearly 90% of the respondents with formal loans and slightly higher than 10% without formal loans. We know that from 0.0 to 10% becomes FCCT's potential clients, with those from 0% to near 90% as clients for cross-selling. MMPC has a low number of clients with formal loans at close to 25%. MMPC clearly has a bigger market potential from 0% to nearly 75%. From this presentation, we can see that FCCT is doing well in competing with the informal loan providers. MMPC, on the other hand, needs to strategize on how it can exceed the provision of informal loans in the area. Then we look at the relation between the access to ICT services and the farmer savings and credit payment level in the areas of farm production, farm production quality, farm improvement, and demand for technical assistance. Initial market survey shows that 80% of the respondents inherited their farmland, with nearly 45% buying their farmlands. Most of the farmers in Cebu own, and that's above 70%, while those in Sarangani, nearly 60% owning their land as well. In terms of production quality, 50% of FCCT survey respondents hire farm helpers, while MMPC is at 30%. For both areas, corn is the preferred crop. It is worth looking at the next phase of the research on the second choice for crop, as corn is even considered to be the lazy farmer's crop. Once it is planted, farmers can just wait for the harvest season because corn is the least maintenance crop in the area. The second choice crop can actually provide a good income stream to farmers that will help them generate savings to pay and even pay for credit if properly selected. Farm improvements are deemed to be important by nearly 100 respondents, with 60 from FCCT and 40 from MMPC. MMPC likewise has 40 respondents, not looking at farm improvements as important. Next phase of the study can look into the agriculture services availed within the area that can somehow create a greater impact on farmer perception on the farm improvement. FCCT registered a high demand for farm technical assistance, with MMPC close by. Few respondents considered that there is no demand for farm technical assistance. We initially looked upon Sarangani and Cebu respondents' saving and credit repayment patterns, farmer household production, and improvement priorities. The demand for technical assistance, climate change coping mechanism will be discussed in greater detail in the final report. Farmer entrepreneurship is not yet embraced by all the respondents, as farmers are regarded not as self-employed or not even an entrepreneur. This is just one of the areas for possible capacity building for these MFIs. When asked respondents' perception of cash deposit and loan repayments through mobile phone, 57% expressed openness to it, with majority from MMPC highly favorable to this scheme. In conclusion, farmers need human intermediaries to facilitate the learning process and actual use of ICT services. Access to ICT services, household savings, and repayment capacity are also not correlated to the richness or poorness of the area. The relation between access to ICT services and the repayment capacity is much more complicated that need to be thoroughly investigated. ICT services can also be utilized for capacity building of MFIs, whose impact will trickle down to the farmers. There's also a greater need to develop farmer entrepreneurship through ICT services. Farmers definitely prefer first-hand experiences on the agriculture technologies, and it was also found out that farmers still look for information through the TV, radio, and even printed materials. Farmers are also not well informed on the seminars offered by the government and private sector, where earlier we mentioned all those available agricultural technical services. They need to add up more on the promotion of these seminars. And farmers also consider ICT innovation only as an optional tool. Farmers also prefer person-to-person interaction, making MFI's account officers as the viable link to developing farmers' agricultural knowledge and ICT adoption, influencing the next, and definitely influencing the next generation farmers of the youth in every farmer household. Some of the service upgrade that we see towards 2013 for these MFIs include additional workshops on nutrient and crop manager in Sarangani and Cebu. And then there will also be additional funding support that MMPC would be getting through some linkages assistance. FCCT will be also conducting a business development service for their micro agri-loan clients. And there has also been some proposals on youth farmer entrepreneurship program that is being reviewed by a local company for their CSR program. Another thing, the Royal Netherlands Embassy has been considering bringing the farmer productivity course to the Philippines in 2013. I hope you're all able to learn something from this MEAD project report as much as I did. I would like to thank Dr. Bill, Jenny, and the entire team for making this conference a success. Malapatan Multipurpose Cooperative and First Consolidated Cooperative along Tanyon Seaboards that extended their full support in making this research happen. Mercy Corps for the extensive research done through Micro Philippines in understanding the Philippine mobile banking from 2009 to 2011, and Dr. Sheikh of the International Rice Research Institute to help me in putting together this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Two excellent papers from different parts of the globe. One Latin America, a comparative study, one from Philippines. I think this is an excellent session. I think the next paper is also going to be very exciting and interesting, and the context is Brazil. Thank you.
So, good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank the IMTFI team, Jenny and Bill especially, for helping us, supporting us on this research. I must tell you that it's my second time here. I came here last year, but the team from the center, Research Center for Microfinance Studies that I'm part of, it's the fourth time that we came here to this conference. Okay, so let's go. Well, okay. So first of all, a little bit about Brazil, that you know that we're going to organize the World Cup very soon, yeah? But there's probably other things that you don't know. So we are almost 200 million people, but already 260 million cell phones all over the country. 82% of them are prepaid. But on the other hand, so we have only 45% of adults that have bank accounts. If you count them among the poor people, so 2/3 of the poor people adult poor people don't have bank accounts. Even they have, they support their families, they have some income, but they don't have access to bank accounts. Another thing that's comparing the mobile with the bank systems. So the mobile is 100% coverage all over the country, while the bank system covers more the richer part of the country, which is the south, the north and northeast part of the country, where the poorest, most of the poor live. So they are not covered mostly by banks. All of this altogether makes that the 70% of all transactions in Brazil are done through cash. So then even we have a very cash society there in Brazil, so, and that's explaining a bit that the way it is. So, and then we want to focus our study in the northeast of the country, just because I think it's the most interesting things are going on are in the north and the northeast of the country. So we're going to tell you a little bit about the city of Fortaleza, which is in the state of Ceará in the northeast of the country. We're going to talk a little bit in particular about the Instituto Palmas, which is MFI that is located in the south part, the poorest part of the city of Fortaleza, which is the capital of the state of Ceará. Here you can see a little bit about what this MFI, it's not only an MFI actually, it's also a neighborhood association. So I must tell you that this neighborhood is, there's about 30,000 people that live around this neighborhood. And this MFI, Instituto Palmas, they created the Banco Palmas institution that is the MFI itself, and then they do a lot of things. So you see on the top, they are training people to do their own closes. So they do financial training, like this is a session of financial education. There you see people applying for credit, and on the top you see a banner saying that, telling the people to buy inside the neighborhood. So that's the strong campaign that they do there to convince people that if you spend your cash inside the community, so the money you're going to stay in the community, so you're going to create more jobs inside the community. So they are very straightforward on doing this campaign. To help them on that, so they also create what they call the social currency that it's valid only inside the community. So this it's called Palmas because the neighborhood is called Conjunto Palmeira. They issue this currency, and this currency is spent only in the community. So through this currency, they teach the people how important it is to create the consumption of things produced inside the community. So they create the whole idea, and the currency is a strong instrument for helping them to do that. Another thing that Banco Palmas, it's not an isolated thing. So they are also the leaders of a group of community banks all over the country. So there are more than 50 now. So you can see in the map that 28 of them are in the state of Ceará. So they are spreading they started from in Fortaleza. Banco Palmas is the first one with this model. They start spreading out all over the country. So there are now more than 50 community banks following more or less the same style. And of course, for all of those banks, they also have different currencies. Each one of those banks has their own currency there. They insist on the same idea to convince people to use, to make the consumption inside the community. So that's why when we first heard that they were trying to create a kind of pilot for mobile payment, they were the first idea that was to move the currency to the mobile system. So then we thought that would be a really interesting case for us to study, because if they do a lot of other things that they already do, and they have this capacity to spread out this model all over the country to other poor neighborhoods in different parts of Brazil. So if this thing went well, so I think we could see this finally the mobile payment taking off in Brazil. And then that's where our project started. So when we first learned about this idea, then we decided to investigate this case, because we thought this case has a potential to disseminate the idea of mobile payment in Brazil. Okay, so first 6 months of the research, so we focus more on the qualitative part of our work. So, and then we made a lot of interviews with different actors, all the actors involved, Banco Palmas, all the executives involved in all the organizations involved with that. So, and some of the clients, and merchants, so Central Bank and the Ministry of Social Development. So then we went all to those guys and trying to find out how this model was created, how it was established. Okay. Then we learned that this whole story can be divided in two stages. First stage was in 2011. So when the Ministry of Social Development, we heard yesterday a lot about CCT. So in Brazil, Bolsa Família is our CCT case. So our conditional cash transfer model there. So it serves around 13 million families in the country. If you count more or less 4 people per family, so you see that it's almost 40% of the population of the country somehow is served by this program. And then the Ministry of Social Development was interested, and of course they pay the benefit for the poor in Brazil, and they were interested in make this transfer through cell phone. So then they thought that could be a good idea to give the benefit, not through a plastic card, which is the way it is right now, but what if we make this transfer through an electronic system? So that's what the idea started. And then they make contacts with a lot of different agencies, like Federal Bank, so Caixa Econômica, it's a bank, a government bank, which is responsible for the payment of the Bolsa Família, and also they make contacts with all the mobile operators and all the brands for the credit cards to see how this could be done. So when they start on this conversation, so then came the central bank and said, oh, come on, let's talk better about this case. So, and then the central bank said, no, better don't this right now. So you need a stronger regulation for doing that. So that's not the right time. So we're going to work on this regulation. So let's wait a bit for that. So this was in 2011. And in 2012, the beginning of this year, nothing related to that, but because of that first story, started a second story. So then Caixa Econômica decided, that could be a good thing to do. So Caixa is responsible for paying the Bolsa Família. And they were thinking on make some kind of experiment on mobile payment with the poor, but they not necessarily related to Bolsa Família, but to the poor clients that they have. So then they called a team of a company. So Vivo is a mobile operator, MasterCard, and Redcard, which is the acquirer that works all together, and all of them joined Caixa, who had a partnership with Banco Palmas. And through this partnership, they thought, we could reach the poor. So because all the things that we've been listening here, so about trust, about how to convince people to use. So this partnership with Banco Palmas would be very useful and interesting for them to promote the mobile payment in this particular neighborhood. And of course, they also need to make this partnership with the merchants of the neighborhood. So then started the second part of the story that we're actually investigating this case. Okay. So what's going on, in fact, there? So we talked to people there, and then and everybody, all the players, and we found out that they registered 1,400 people to use the system because they give them free chip, so they need to open an account at Caixa there. So you see there those girls there, they sell, they convince people that go to, this is inside Banco Palmas. So when a client go to Banco Palmas to do whatever thing, so they approach to the client and say, oh, would you like to have a free chip for mobile to use, to do payments? So yeah, it's free, okay, so we're gonna get this chip and we're gonna use them for something. But they are not using it for any kind of payment, but because the whole thing is not well connected. So, and then you see that those girls that are pushing the chips to the people, they're working for the mobile operator. So then they're actually giving them a chip that they can use as a mobile phone, a regular mobile. And usually people have already another operator, but then they can have two. So, and then also the mobile operator is making a big effort in this region to grow its market share. So, and then with very aggressive plans for people to make calls in very cheap way, so then to get the free chip is somehow good. But you see that from those 1,400 registered people, only 500 chips are active, meaning that people that are not using that much the chip. So then we went to some of the houses of the people and said, oh, I lost my chip, I don't know where I put it. I put it in somewhere, I don't know what it is anymore. And people actually are not using for any kind of mobile payment, they're just using for making calls. And actually, if you ask them if they think that's interesting, so because the security motivation emerges for them, because I must tell you that it's not a very secure neighborhood to walk around, including you're gonna see most of our pictures are in inside places. We were not allowed to walk in the streets with cameras and things like this because we'd be robbed if you did that. So all our pictures are from inside places that were allowed to do that. And then security motivation for people not to use cash is something that we discovered that it's important for them to use the mobile payment, but even though they are not using. When you visit the merchants, so we see only 4 merchants registered for receiving payments. As you see, we're talking from in a model that's purely B2C model. It's not P2P. The whole model was not created for people to transfer more money to other people. The model was set up for people to buy things using mobile, buy things in stores using the mobile. This was the purpose of the model. But one thing that we think that was interesting is about the informal merchants that were not formalized. So they are not kind of formal businesses. They should be treated as, in this case would be peer-to-peer. But the thing is that the companies are not very well prepared to approach to those informal merchants. That would be interesting if they do that. There's a lot of informal merchants in the region. So if they had the approach for the peer-to-peer, probably they would reach better those guys. What's not happening. And if you see the discourse of all the players involved, you see that all of them are saying different things. For example, so if you go to a mobile operator, you're going to see them talking, the main concern for them is to gain market share. So they are involved in this pilot to try to gain more market share. That's the main goal for them. If you talk to the guys from the acquirer, they see a problem of the conflict channel because they have already POS system there. So if they replace the POS by the cell phone, so they charge 50 reais for the POS. And if for the cell phone, they would charge only 12 reais. So they would lose money if they go further in this model. If you go to MasterCard, and then they're going to say, they told us, oh yeah, this is really nice, but mobile payment is going to take off only 15 years from now. So that's. And if you go to Caixa, the bank say, oh, but this is a model for it's not mobile payment that we're really interested. We're doing some mobile banking. This is not, our focus is mobile banking. And of course, the Banco Palmas, it's a totally different kind of thing. So they are interested in social inclusion to financial inclusion. They think that they're already offering a lot of financial services, and this would be another service that they could offer to the clients in the neighborhood, so they see more the interest of the people there. So from this, you can see that, so they don't converge. So all of them are working together in the same project, but they're seeing the project as totally different goals for each of them. Of course, there are still other issues. There are some operational failures that we found out. For example, the process is when the person goes there, get interested in enrolling in the process of getting the chip, have to open an account at Caixa, and then have to wait 15 days to receive the credit card plastic, and then they go there again and register the plastic, the number, the plastic on the cell phone. So then they can throw away the credit, the plastic. But the thing is, sometimes, not sometimes, many times, we found out that when they open an account at Caixa don't send them a MasterCard credit card. They send them another brand. So another brand, it's not possible to do that. So they have to wait more 15 days to receive the MasterCard plastic to register to be registered in the system. So this is a problem. Of course, another thing that it's clear for us talking to not only with the bank but with MasterCard and View, they are not used to work with a low-income market. They don't have the right way to approach them, so they don't know this market. They are relying on Banco Palmas for doing that. But the thing is, Banco Palmas has different expectations from what they have. So, of course, and they actually they don't see Banco Palmas as part of the group that take the decisions, but only part of the ones that are going to implement the decisions that were taken. So this is one thing that we noticed there. And from the side of the clients, we still see people, even if security is an issue for them, they recognize themselves as very connected to real cash. I think that's interesting, the idea, but one thing, that's that the thing is not working, and at the same time, so they feel like connected to the cash culture. So another thing, the whole system was not created to interoperate with other companies like other operators, other mobile operators, or other banks. It was created just to operate between that group of companies, which makes all the system very limited, and it's a big problem if you see for the perspective for replicability of the model. This will be a problem. Okay. And what we're going to do next? So we promised everybody we're going to tell all of them about this. It was interesting to see, because it seems that they don't talk to each other. So we were the ones that were telling to each other what the others were thinking about the project that they are all together working. So in our perspective, there is a governance problem in the project. So then we're going to write a report and explain to them about this, our view on that. And next semester, we're going to start making the more quantitative analysis with data. So in Banco Palmas, they have very rich data about the women that receive Bolsa Familia in a project called ELAS. And they have lots of, they visit every family every month, and they have 2 years data from 5,000 families, which is a rich database. So we're going to work on this database next. And we're expecting the new regulation. Finally, the central bank is moving in a direction to create a PSP regulation, so the payment service provider regulation. We expect that as this new regulation came up, so a lot of this kind of thing will change. So because at least that's the intention that at the central bank to push in the direction of the implementation of mobile payment, and this new regulation will do that. And we are also organizing in April, beginning of April, a seminar in our school to discuss this with all those partners. I think that would be interesting. And of course, so the Ministry of Social Development is also waiting for that, because they're still interested in making the payment of Bolsa Familia through cell phones. And so if the moment that they start doing that, they will become the biggest client of mobile operators in Brazil. So in one like this, it will be 13 million clients getting into the system of mobile payment if they start doing that. And of course, Banco Palmas is still also moving. It's going to be their 15th anniversary next January. So we're going to be there and tell them all the results of our research. And well, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful set of presentations. I would like to invite the audience to ask questions and clarifications and so on. What we'll do is we'll take all the questions and then they'll respond to it one at a time. So now it's for the audience to ask any questions.
Hi, I'm Ashita from the School of Information at UC Berkeley. My question is to Judith. When you're talking about the regulation of financial systems, I was wondering who exactly was regulating them, the central bank or the telecom regulation?
Let's go to the next question, please.
Hi, Gustav Peebles from the New School. So I was fascinated to hear that the central bank in Brazil was not interested in initially promoting mobile payments, but seemed to be completely uninvolved in the proliferation of social currencies. Because usually central banks get kind of nervous around the idea of the issuing of social currencies, and one reason they do is because they get worried about their ability to sort of measure and control the money supply. And so I just sort of thought that really interestingly raised questions about sort of macro level questions for us about to what extent, with mobile money moving into the field of loans and credit and debt, to what extent, central banks need to start worrying about that in different ways than we've been paying attention to.
Okay, we'll take one more question in the front. There's some in the front. Please bring the mic. Anybody in the front?
This is addressed to the second presenter. Could you just throw a little more light on the statement which said access to ICT services, household savings and repayment capacity are not correlated to richness or poorness of the region? Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's have our speakers to respond to these questions. Yeah.
It's very short. It's not the central bank. It's Comisión Nacional Bancaria y de Valores, that is a commission that regulates and, in general, gives the rules and regulations.
Are you answering the first question? Sorry?
Yes, I'm just answering the
first question.
That specific question. It's like the security exchange market, regulatory.
Thank you.
So I can tell a bit about the history in central bank in Brazil. Well, the thing is, their concern in the beginning When the Ministry of Social Development first thought about delivering the Bolsa Familia to the cell phone, they thought that the way they were designing the process would be that they would create silos, and with different companies, they are not creating some kind of universal ecosystem for exchanging. So that's at least their explanation for why they told the ministry to wait a little bit for the new regulation. But what we see now, that they are very affirmative, positive in terms of creating this environment. So this new regulation that is about to come up probably the beginning of next year on the payment service provider, it's interesting and can change a bit of everything, but it won't be until savings and other kind of services. It's more like to create a payment environment. Now, actually, the idea is to not to take off the control, because now banks have the total control of the payment systems in the country. So with this new regulation, banks will have less control on that. So new players can come up with they take part of the system. But it's only payment. It's not related to savings or any other kind of services.
The third question.
With regards to the access to ICT services, household savings and repayment capacity, being not correlated to the richness and poorness of the area, we have seen through the research that Cebu being the more advanced, which is technically the richer area compared to Sarangani, it seems that the access to the IT services is really more dependent on having to promote the ICT, the agricultural IT services within those areas, and the connectivity of the mobile service providers rather than them being rich or poor.
Okay. Any other questions? Right there. Okay. Sure.
Yes, thank you. Nice presentations. My question is directed to the ICT and farming. I was just wondering if your study also looked at the value chain of farming, looking at the production side, the transportation, and then the marketing. At what stage is ICT more important in this direction? And also whether ICT has any productivity effect in terms of crop yielding that will help farmers to save more and other things. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, please.
Yes, we are actually looking at that. It's just that when the data that we tried to generate in time for this mid-project presentation was not complete, so I'm unable to present part of that research.
Any other? Yeah, that's.
Thank you very much. My name is Tim Waima from University of Nairobi in Kenya. Very interesting presentations, but my question is to Eduardo. A very interesting presentation. I don't know what will ever happen. You were describing mobile money adoption in northeastern Brazil. And I don't know whether the pilot that you were studying, whether it's happening in a particular state in northeastern Brazil. What are the other states doing? Is this the first pilot in the whole Brazil, or do other states have their own pilots? And I'm just wondering and curious whether the Brazilian government has talked to other countries in the region to find out how they're doing their mobile money adoption, because it looks like with the interests that everybody is pursuing, it will be very difficult to move forward.
The thing is, mobile mobile money hasn't taken off in Brazil yet. What we have some experience, including Judith has studied one of our cases, which is Pago. But it's not focused to the poor. And it was more like a model based on, it was a kind of credit card in your cell phone. It's B2C related model, it's not P2P. In this case, probably Adrian knows better the numbers, but it's some few thousand people using it, is that right? 15,000. There's only 15,000 in the whole country using this, meaning almost nothing. Yeah. So, but this is the first case in terms of specifically designed to the poor. That's the difference of this case. And I'm telling about in terms of the other countries. So Brazil, it's an interesting space for experiments in terms of that, and other countries, of course, are looking to it. But the other countries are so different. Probably Judith knows better than I in terms of how different are between the countries. So, but I really believe that if we do something that works well, and in my opinion, this strategy in Brazil to use the Bolsa Familia as a way to launch mobile payment would be a very interesting strategy, because very soon we could reach millions of people. So if you reach millions, then we're going to have the externality that it is needed to make the mobile payment to take off.
Thank you. There's a question there. Sorry, please go ahead. Yeah?
Just to add that in Latin America, the mobile banking model has really not been launched and adopted in a large scale. But what is happening is exactly what Eduardo was mentioning. In Brazil, it's through the Bolsa de Familia. In Peru, it's through Amigos. In Mexico, it's through Oportunidades, that are the cash conditional transfer programs where the government is using the mobile to send the resources. But the problem is that, well, maybe in Brazil, I don't know what the numbers are. In Mexico, right now, there are only like 10,000, not more than 15,000 beneficiaries from the conditional cash transfer programs. So that's one way to go, but I don't think will guarantee the results.
Thank you very much. Next question, in the back. Somebody raise a hand here.
Yes, my name is Lotta Björklund Larsson, Linköping University from Sweden. Thank you so much. It's very interesting, and I learn a lot by listening to you. But in the back of my mind is always this question, and it's not really what you question as such with your research, but do you have, and I want to challenge you a little bit about this, do you see any really impact of getting the poor out of their dire life with these type of impact of what you have been studying? If there's numbers or specific examples or so forth.
So what I see clearly changing the landscape of the poor in Brazil, it's the CCT model. So the Bolsa Familia is really changing. So we have been done studies on that all over the country. We've seen how important is this cash transfer programs has changed the way people live in poor areas of the country. So it's improving in many different ways. You can tell, for example, the way it's creating jobs inside small cities that were nothing there. So because they start buying things in the community. But it's also related not to mobile, but related to the correspondent banking, that most of around 70% of the cash transfer programs are withdrawn in correspondent bankings, the correspondent banking network. So, and then in this case, you see really changing. What we see from this, and specifically the people from the Ministry of Social Development also see, is that if they do that through the cell phone, they cannot also deliver the cash to the cell phone, but they also can keep in touch with people all the time. So they would improve the quality of the information that they have from the people through the same system. So what we see from this, the possibility for this, is that we can move to another level. So if for the first level, so you see the situation changing because of the cash transfer programs, so you're going to see this system improving using the cell phone. So this is my point of view.
I would just like to add that I think that the potential for transforming the life of the poor is not mobile banking. Mobile banking is just a tool, as we were talking about with Jonathan this morning. What really has an impact is the mechanism through which it has an impact, or one of the most significant mechanisms, is through savings. That is just amazing, and I've seen it. And in the case of Latin America, there is a group called Proyecto Capital that we know about because we were there, and we were witness to the impact of financial inclusion in the lives of women of very, of the lowest income level. And yes, it does have a potential of transforming the lives of the poor, but it's really through the financial inclusion, and mobile just makes it easier for that to happen. It, as it usually does, diminish transaction costs and
Let's say another thing. So the Projeto Elas that we're going to study next, we just got the data, it's the idea is very close to the one that we saw in Peru, the Proyecto Capital. So it's not only to give money to the people, but to teach them how to use. So I show you one of the pictures of a session of financial education. So that's what Banco Palmas does. All the community banks that I told you, they do more or less the same. They're not only interested on the money itself, the cash transfer itself, but to create the whole consciousness about how to use the finance to improve their lives.
Any response from the speaker from Philippines? Do you want to add to this?
For the agricultural technical services to be available through the mobile phone, definitely it's just a tool. The impact that we're looking at is towards the long term, that these farmers would be able to be more productive in their produce, having the access to market information, readily accessible market information that probably we won't be seeing that fast. I mean, it can take years for Philippines to reach that level, but we see several initiatives being done to get to that point. So hopefully in the near future, it would happen.
Thank you. One last question, anybody? I just want to add something here. We're doing some work in the small business communities in Southern California. These presentations are so really very important for me, for our group. There's one point which we are addressing. We don't have answers. I want us to think about it. The technology is, while it's bringing the benefits to the communities, it's also affecting their ecologies very seriously, small businesses, their social and very community functions. So something to think about. Is technology a benefactor? If so, in what ways? What happens to the community lives if the technology comes into these small businesses, because they got all kinds of personal relationships, community relationships. That's what we are studying, and these presentations are very, very useful for somebody like me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's have some nice lunch.